905 meters, 242 meters of climb, 20 minutes, top to bottom. China just built an escalator almost a kilometer long, and it didn't just break a world record. It replaced a 1-hour climb every single day. Locally, it's called the Shennü, or Goddess Escalator, but what matters isn't the name, it's what it replaces. Wushan County sits deep inside Chongqing, China's mountain city, and it earns that name. This is a place where flat city thinking simply doesn't work. Roads zigzag up cliffsides, slopes can reach extreme gradients, in some sections approaching 40 degrees or more. But there's another layer to this. Wushan isn't just a mountain town. Large parts of it were rebuilt after the Three Gorges Dam forced the city to relocate. This is a place that's already had to adapt once before. Getting from the riverside to the hilltop neighbourhoods wasn't inconvenient. It was a genuine physical ordeal. An hour on foot, twice a day, every day. Back in the 1990s, tens of thousands of porters worked across Chongqing's hills. Not occasionally, as a profession. People whose entire working life was carrying refrigerators, furniture and construction materials up a near-vertical mountainside on their backs, because there was simply no other way to move things. That was the region's solution: human backs. Now the same journey is handled by a glass-enclosed escalator, moving 9,000 people a day. 30 years of change compressed into a single image. And that's what this project is really about. If the length doesn't hit you, the scale should. We aren't just talking about a long walkway. We're talking about vertical displacement. To put that in perspective, you're gaining nearly 250 meters of altitude. That is the equivalent of summiting a major city landmark. Think the Eiffel Tower or the Willis Tower, except you're doing it while standing perfectly still. For over 30 years, Hong Kong's central mid-level system was the undisputed king of this niche. It was the gold standard of steep urbanism at 800 meters. Wushan didn't just beat that record. It blew past it by the length of a professional football pitch. But the most telling metric isn't the length, it's the utility. During its debut for Chinese New Year 2026, this system handled nearly 500,000 trips in 30 days. When you're moving that many bodies, you aren't a sightseeing attraction anymore. You're the spine of the city. But building a spine through a mountainside isn't simple. Here's the first thing to understand. This is not one escalator. What China built in Wushan is an entire vertical transport system, stitched directly into the mountain. 21 escalator sections, 8 elevators, 4 moving walkways, 2 pedestrian bridges, all of it linked into a single seamless route, top to bottom. The design team, led by Chief Engineer Huang Wei, spent 4 years on this. They looked at cable cars, sightseeing trains, even rail transit. They chose the modular escalator system for one reason above all: it could follow the mountain rather than fight it. That was the core philosophy, what they called mountain-embracing construction. Instead of blasting a straight path through the cliffside, each section bends and slots around the natural terrain, integrating with existing roads and buildings rather than overriding them. Chongqing's climate is demanding, humid, rainy, and prone to temperature swings. Running 905 meters of exposed machinery in this environment would be extremely challenging. Moisture accelerates steel corrosion, rain turns metal steps into a 900-meter slide, and temperature cycling causes precision parts to warp and fail. The full-length glass enclosure isn't a luxury or an aesthetic flourish. It's a survival strategy. By creating a controlled microenvironment, it shields the 21 escalator sections from the elements, making long-term maintenance actually possible. The panoramic views of the Wu Gorge? Those are just a bonus. The system itself was built for durability, featuring high-strength steel skeletons manufactured by Schindler, the Swiss company behind many of Chongqing's metro escalator systems. The Goddess's high-strength steel structures were built near Shanghai before being trucked to Wushan. Huang Wei put it simply: "As far as I know, there are no similar projects nationwide, either exceeding or equal to ours. It's the first of its kind." And it was built in a city that had already been solving vertical transport for decades, just never at this scale. But while Wushan is the biggest, it's not the first city to realize that if you can't move the mountain, you have to move the people over it. there's a more important comparison than you might expect. Because this didn't come out of nowhere. Chongqing has been solving vertical movement for decades, from the Crown Escalator in the 1990s to systems like this. What you're seeing in Wushan is the latest step in that evolution. The obvious comparison is Hong Kong. The central mid-level system has held the Guinness World Record since 1993. 800 metres, 135 metres of elevation gain, around 80,000 pedestrians a day. It's a commuter route and a cultural landmark in one. Wushan surpasses it in length and elevation, but not in ridership. But the comparison that actually matters is Medellin, Colombia. In 2011, the city connected its most isolated hillside neighbourhoods to the main transit network using outdoor escalators. Journey times dropped by 2/3, and areas that had been functionally cut off were suddenly part of the city again. Over a decade later, those escalators are still running, and the benefits have held. If Wushan's maintenance holds, that's the trajectory to watch for, not the record. Whether it does is the real question. So, you step on. What do you actually experience? The glass enclosure means panoramic views the entire way up. You're moving through the mountain, not just past it. On a clear day, you can see the Wu Gorge and the Three Gorges, one of China's most dramatic river landscapes. The system was designed to preserve those views, not obstruct them. Transitions between sections are seamless. Escalator to walkway to elevator to bridge. Passengers move through the whole system without feeling like they're switching. It functions as one continuous journey. At night, it transforms entirely. Lighting along the route turns the structure into a ribbon of light winding through the hills, part of Wushan's broader nightscape strategy. Infrastructure as spectacle. This was intentional. The goal wasn't just to move people, it was to make the infrastructure itself part of the city's experience. And to be fair, it succeeds. The question is whether that should have been the priority. And the cost. During the trial phase, 3 yuan, about 30 pence or 40 US cents, one way. What stands out about Wushan is that it actually starts in the right place. This wasn't driven by a master plan or an abstract vision of the future. It started with a very specific, very physical problem. People climbing the equivalent of an 80-story building just to get home. Elderly residents, workers, anyone carrying anything, doing it twice a day. And instead of forcing a conventional solution onto that terrain, the city built around the reality of how people actually live there. The result is simple but rare. Thousands of daily journeys are now easier, faster, and less physically punishing. That shouldn't be a high bar in infrastructure, but in practice, it often is. But the scale of the impact needs to be kept in perspective. 9,000 daily riders is meaningful for a mountainous county. It's a real improvement to daily life. But it's not a system that reshapes a city in the way major transit does. Chongqing's metro moves millions. This is a targeted solution to a local problem, and it works. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. The bigger unknown is what happens over time. This is a long, complex mechanical system operating in a humid, rainy environment with significant temperature variation. Even in dense urban settings, escalators require constant maintenance and periodic shutdowns. Here, access is harder, conditions are harsher, and the system is far more extensive. The opening performance is impressive, but the real test is whether it remains reliable 5 or 10 years from now. There's also a question about how much of this needed to be spectacle. The night lighting is undeniably striking, a ribbon of light cutting through the mountainside. But the original problem was basic mobility. Lighting adds cost, energy use, and visual impact in a sensitive landscape. It doesn't make the system work better. You can appreciate how it looks and still question whether it was necessary. And then there's the part that sits behind all of this: how it was delivered. A project like this moves quickly in a system with centralized planning, available funding, and fewer procedural barriers. That speed is impressive, but it isn't just about engineering capability. It reflects a governance model that most cities don't have access to. For planners elsewhere, that's the real constraint, not whether something like this is technically possible. So where does that leave it? This is a genuinely effective piece of infrastructure. It solves a real problem in a way that fits the place it's built in and it measurably improves daily life for the people who use it. But it's not a revolution, it's not a model that scales easily, and there are still open questions about cost and longevity. For the people riding it every day, though, those questions are secondary. What matters is that a journey that used to take an hour and a fair amount of physical effort now takes 20 minutes. For an elderly resident or someone carrying groceries, 20 minutes versus 60 isn't a statistic. It's felt in the legs every single day. Nearly a kilometre of escalator climbing straight through a mountainside, a world record on paper. But the part that matters isn't the length, it's what it replaces. A journey that used to take time, effort, and real physical strain now doesn't. And for the people who make that trip every day, that change is immediate. It impacts life. Good infrastructure doesn't need to be mythologized to be worth celebrating. Its value shows up quietly, in easier routines, shorter days, and less effort just to get where you need to go. And it does raise a broader question. How many cities are still living with problems like this? Not dramatic enough to attract attention, not ambitious enough to make headlines, but shaping people's lives every single day. Because projects like this don't start with scale. They start with noticing something that's been overlooked for a long time and deciding to fix it. If that kind of thinking interests you, not just the spectacle of construction, but the decisions behind it, that's what the Design Zip channel is about. I'll see you in the next one.